last weekend, of course, was Hall of Fame week. The Pittsburgh Steelers and the Dallas Cowboys kicked it off, of course, with an absolutely hard on the eyes football game to watch.
Look at that. I was wondering if you were going to, sugarcoat it. It was awful. It's hard to watch. We love football, but my goodness gracious.
Yeah, it was bad. And then, of course, the Hall of Fame inductions. And Bill Belichick, the headliner, of course, of a great class was Peyton Manning. And he said this about Manning, Bill Belichick did over the weekend. He is definitely the best quarterback I've coached against. There have been quarterbacks who called their own plays, but it was nowhere near the same as what he did. He basically called every play by adjusting and or changing the play once he saw what the defense was doing. He excelled at using the cadence and recognizing blitzes, and more than any one single offensive player, he forced us to change and adapt defensive game plans. And Manning was 3-1 against the Patriots under Belichick in AFC title games, Rob. So that probably has a lot to do with why he said that about Peyton Manning. But Rob, I agree. When I think about Peyton Manning and his greatness, obviously won 2 Super Bowls. But I feel like he changed the game, Rob, from the quarterback position. Because, he would call the game at the line of scrimmage. And now that's commonplace. But before him, it wasn't. You went up there and you ran the play for the most part. You might audible. You could audible, of course.
People used to audible. I know they're
audible,
trying to...
but not what he's done. He would go up there, basically almost toward the end, it was like every play he's calling at the line of scrimmage. Audibles weren't happening all the time like that. He was basically calling the game from the line of scrimmage. And now at various levels, you see quarterbacks doing that. So that's really what I think about, when I think about Peyton Manning, is how, in my view, he changed the game like that.
Yeah, I don't look at him that way. I just look at him as a guy who put up a ton of points and yards and all that in the regular season, who struggled in the postseason for whatever reason. Really won 1 Super Bowl against a weak Bears team.
Doesn't he have 2?
Yeah, and then the other one had a great defense that did he even throw a touchdown in that game? I don't even know. But he was a shell of himself at that point. So I'm not. He's a great player. I get it. He won all the MVPs and all the other stuff, and obviously a first ballot Hall of Famer. Yeah, but I don't. I don't look at the game and go, oh yeah, Peyton Manning was the reason that happened and that changed everything.
He was just pointing stuff out left and right. I wasn't seeing that before Peyton Manning.
Yeah, I just
now dudes are doing it all over the place.
Yeah, I'm just saying, I don't hang on to that. I hang on to, he was a prolific passer, and did a lot of great things and won a lot of games or whatever, and he got his 2 Super Bowls. So, and he was the first quarterback ever to win a Super Bowl with 2 different teams. First one.
Do you agree with Belichick that he's the best? He's played Aaron Rodgers.
Well, yeah, because he beat Belichick. He has a winning record. You know what I mean? So, yeah, I would see where Belichick would give him his ultimate respect.
Well, Rob, of course, it's always on to the next thing in our society. And right after, the busts are still warm or cold or whatever you would call it, people started talking about next year's class. And up for next year's class is the media darling, the broadcasting sensation, Tony Romo. And people are debating whether or not he is indeed a Hall of Famer. What's your take on that?
I don't think he's a Hall of Famer, and not even close. And I think this is all smoke and mirrors. This is what happens when you do television and you become more popular now than when he was a player. And
he
not
was
that
pretty popular, though.
Nah, but he's more popular now. And now people are going to look at his career differently. They didn't even win a playoff game when he was there. Did they win 1?
2.
Oh, okay.
2 and 4.
I don't remember. I remember him mishandling a extra point that cost him a game.
Seattle.
Yeah, I remember.
That's one of the first memories people have.
Yeah, I mean, that's what I remember
No, I
of
agree.
him.
You're right, though.
Yeah, like that's a big faux pas. And I'm not saying he didn't put up some numbers, but at the Hall of Fame, you got to be the best of the best to me, not just because you played for the Cowboys and you had some success. Those aren't the Cowboys I remember as the most successful, even though he had decent stats or whatever. But that's not, I don't see him as a Hall of Famer. I think what happens is you see it in baseball a lot. A lot of guys go to the broadcast booth and become very fan favorites and somehow get in through the back door. You know, Baseball Hall of Fame, a lot of guys. Phil Rizzuto was an old Yankee announcer. He had a good career, but he played on a great team, Chris, that won 10 World Series. So Phil Rizzuto got in. You know, he didn't really get in on his own merit. And I think that's where the Tony Romo conversation is. I don't see him as a Hall of Famer. And I think to put him in would be a stretch.
I'm with you. I don't view him as a Hall of Famer either. I understand he put up some numbers. There's no doubt about it. I don't think this is, in my view, I don't think this is a result of him being in the media now and being very highly regarded in that aspect. I just think, I thought when he played, I thought he was a little bit overrated. He was good. He was very good at points. But I felt like because he was the quarterback of the Cowboys, he got a lot more love and a lot more attention than he would have elsewhere. And that comes with the territory. I mean, Dak, same thing. He gets more attention and love than he probably would elsewhere. And, when you do well, it's magnified. It's almost, Rob, it's almost like being in New York. You know what I mean? Like, when you're in Dallas and you're the quarterback, everything is magnified, really almost any position, but just playing for that team because it's such a national team. But I think, look, a lot of people will say, well, he is the all-time leader for the Cowboys in yards and touchdowns. And, of course, the Cowboys had the great Roger Staubach and the great Troy Aikman, and he threw for more yards and touchdowns than both of them. Here's the thing, and I know he ranks fairly high. He's 34th all-time in yards, 24th all-time in touchdowns. But, Rob, you know this. You can't compare the stats of the quarterbacks today or the receivers.
Game. It's a totally different game.
To quarterbacks and receivers back then. You just can't. Number one, they didn't throw nearly as much. But beyond, and some people today might say, well, that's because they didn't throw it as well and all that. Rob, the completion percentages were far lower back then. Dudes were at 50%, a little above. Now, obviously, they're in the mid to high 60s nowadays. But here's the thing. Quarterbacks weren't protected back in the day by the rules the way they are now. Quarterbacks, Rob, used to get teed off on. And so did receivers, right? I mean, it was a whole
There was no
different
such thing as
era.
a defenseless receiver like
Absolutely.
you have now.
It was different. It was not just that teams throw more today. It was also the rules were so much different, and they weren't in favor of the quarterback and the receivers like they are today. So that's a big chunk of it. So don't tell me he's not nearly as good as Roger Staubach or Troy Aikman was.
And what do they have that he doesn't have?
Super Bowl.
Yes. Hello. Like they played in big
consistently.
games. They won big games. I mean, when you talk about Hall of Fame, you want to put them in the Dallas Cowboys Hall of Fame, Chris? I ain't going to fight you over that if you want to do that.
And even, you can put him up there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, usually people in the Cowboys Hall of Fame, Rob, won.
No,
you know what I'm saying? Because I know they've been bad for a quarter century. But they were a great team back in the 70s, 80s, and 90s.
Right. It's been the last 25 years that they turned into not being winners. But I think you got to be real careful just putting people in on empty numbers. Like people say, Is Matthew Stafford going to go into the Pro Football Hall of Fame?
Well, it's similar, Rob.
No, I know.
Don't you think?
Yep.
It's very similar. His numbers probably are even better than Romo's off the top of my head.
Yeah, no, I believe that. But when you're down 21-0, Chris, in the first quarter, guess what? You're going to throw the ball more, and you got it right. And defenses are going to play soft in front, right? They don't want anything over their heads, but in front they'll give it to you.
Yeah.
I mean, that's just common sense.
Yep. Yeah. I mean, look, Romo was a very good quarterback, and he or certainly far above average. There's no doubt about it. And it's not taking anything away from him. But you don't throw just very good quarterbacks into the Hall of Fame, Rob.
No.
I mean, you've got to have – his numbers are really good. They're not sensational. They don't blow your doors off. And so then, did you win? Like, you got to have one or the other. Eli Manning, we talk about him, and I know we get disagreement, but he won 2 Super Bowls. His regular seasons aren't great, but he won 2 Super Bowls. And he did it in New York. He did it against Tom Brady. So that's a feather in his cap.
He beat the, what were they, 18-0 Patriots?
Yep, 18-0.
I mean, dude, you can say whatever you want. Like, he was the MVP, won that Super Bowl. Hard to look at that guy and not give him some credit. You know what I mean, on that situation.
Yeah, and I don't think it's anything wrong with Tony Romo was a very good quarterback, but he wasn't a Hall of Famer. Doesn't mean you couldn't play.
Right.
Right?
That's what people think. If you say that, you're dissing his entire career.
Right.
No, that's not what we're doing.
And maybe he'll get it because, look, and I used to love Drew Pearson. And Drew Pearson just got in. And, he waited forever, So I don't know. Will they do that for Romo? You know what I'm saying? Like, Rob, I'd say this. If the Cowboys continue to lose, that may even help his case. Because, it won't be usually it was about the Cowboys who won. Drew Pearson won Super Bowls. You know what I mean? Like, it was like you win when you're with the Cowboys. If they don't win anymore, then maybe people won't hold that against Romo as much. And maybe that'll help him. But I'm with you. I don't think he's a Hall of Famer. Very good. But I think he's just on the outside looking in. But it'll be interesting to see what they do with him. I'll be looking forward, Rob, to when we get some of the former players on to ask them what they think about that. So
no doubt.
Now, go ahead.
No, I just like when you talk about Hall of Famers, to me, like there should be little to no debate. I'm dead serious. If there's a full-fledged debate, no, I know.
Now, with your logic, is Kendrick Perkins going to somehow get in the Hall of Fame as he becomes this big-time broadcaster?
Yeah, I guess they'll redo his numbers, right, and say that he's something different than he is.